Okay, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I am back, by the way, because I told you be back in a couple of minutes. But anyway, join me on the line right now. Here's a sports writer, and he's releasing a new book. It's called Gunslinger, which is about Brett Favre, which will be releasing next week, which will be my birthday. Surprise. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Mr. Jeff Pearlman to the program. Welcome, Jeff, and how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well. Thank you so much. How are you?
I am pretty good, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on to my show to discuss your new book, Gunslinger, by the way. Like I said, that book will release by my birthday, October 25th. That's next week.
That's a good, I actually did that on purpose. I thought to myself, when is Shawn's birthday? And then I thought, all right, we're going for that day because we want to tie it to a holiday or something big. And that's how we do.
You joking?
No, I really thought to myself, Shawn's birthday, October 25th. I like the number 25. I'm going to put the Favre book out that day.
Oh!
It's a gift for you. It's a gift for you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm looking for that book. I appreciate it. Wow.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. And like I said, the last time I had you, me and you were discussing about you released a book called Showtime. I did. It was a pleasure having you on the program. And now you just wrote another book. It's called Gunslinger. Now, how long did it took for you to write that book, and why did you write that book?
It took me about 2 years, and I wrote it because the guys, they're always looking. Whenever I'm thinking about who I want to write about, I always, I'm thinking, it has to be someone who has never been about in a definitive biography. It has to be someone who I won't lose my mind writing about, and it has to be someone iconic, someone people are interested in. And I think enough time has passed since Favre retired and unretired and retired and unretired, where everyone just got really tired of him. I feel like enough time has passed where there's just this kind of intrigue and this re-interest in Brett Favre. So to me, he was a pretty easy choice because he's so huge. There's never been a definitive book. And, I thought he would be an interesting guy, which he actually is.
I thought he is because, like I always say, you interview many athletes, and that's why you wrote that book. So, was there an athlete before we get into the book? Was there an athlete that really gave you some issues
with this book or in my life?
In your life.
Oh, of course. Barry Bonds, very difficult. Will Clark, the former Giant, very difficult. John Rocker, who wanted to kill me. I mean, over the years, there have been many, many athletes who are difficult. Most aren't. Some are.
Wow, because I heard a lot about Barry Bonds. Because I heard Barry Bonds was very difficult, not only for journalists but also for fans.
Yeah, nobody liked him. He was not a nice human being. That was his flaw.
And that's why I saw you on the top 5 reasons you can't blame Barry Bonds.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's correct.
Exactly.
I also wrote a book about Bonds, so that that's what they call him.
Exactly. So let's go on with the book. So by the way, I read his biography. It seemed like when he was in high school, he was offered a scholarship. That was the only one he received, and he originally was supposed to play defensive back, but he wanted to play quarterback instead. Did you talk about his book? Did you write the book when he was in college?
Of course. He went to Southern Miss, and he was not heavily recruited. He was not recruited at all. Nobody cared about him. Coming out of high school, he was a run. He was really a quarterback who handed off all the time. That's all he did. So nobody knew he was any good. And Southern Miss just found out about him. A recruiter found out about him, took a shot on him, thought worst case scenario he can play safety or defensive back or maybe linebacker. And then he showed up as a freshman and he just had this arm. I mean, unlike any arm in college football. That's the thing about Favre. He could throw the ball just so ridiculously hard and so ridiculously far that as a freshman they inserted him in a game against Tulane, and he led them to a comeback win, and that was it. He was the starting quarterback at Southern Miss for most of the next 4 years.
And then in his junior season, his Golden Eagles beat Florida State on September 2nd of '89, and he capped a 6.5-minute drive with the game-winning touchdown with 23 seconds remaining.
Yeah, that was an amazing game. It was supposed to be a home game for Southern Miss, and Florida State paid Southern Miss to come to play them, in Florida. So Florida State was just a gimme game. It was just supposed to be a game to get ready for the tough schedule. and they show up. It's blisteringly hot. The Southern Miss coach was a guy named Curly Hallman, and he was huge into physical conditioning. So his guys were prepared for the heat because they'd spent all summer training in the heat of Hattiesburg, and they just wore Florida State down. Favre picked them apart. Florida State included a lot of future NFL players, and they had never heard of this guy. And he comes in there and he just takes them apart. He also beat Alabama in college. He beat Auburn in college. He almost beat Georgia in college. He made Southern Miss a top 25 program. He had a great college career. He really did.
That is very impressive, especially for a small school as a quarterback.
Yeah, no, he put them on the map briefly, and they had a really mediocre program before. They've had a horrible program since. But for those 4 years when Brett was there, Southern Miss was legit. They were really a legit program.
And then he was also involved in a car accident, and it was like going around between like few tenths of a mile from his parents' house, and he lost control of the car and flipped 3 times and came rest against the tree.
Yeah, he almost died. He came very close to dying. He, to me, it's one of the most impressive things he did in his career. He almost died. He lost 30 inches of his intestine.
Oh,
a huge amount. Yeah, and he wasn't supposed to come back that season, and there was no way he was coming back. He missed the first game of the season, and then he came back, play Alabama at Alabama. It was Gene Stallings' first game as a coach of Alabama. Alabama was supposed to be really good. Favre was 30 pounds underweight, and somehow they beat Alabama at Alabama in the season opener. I mean, it's one of the most amazing achievements with a quarterback who had almost died in a car accident a few months earlier. It's absolutely tremendous.
And then Gene Stallings said, I'll quote this. It says, quote, "You can call it a miracle or a legend or whatever you want to. I just know that on that day, Brett Favre was larger than life."
Yep, and he really was. I mean, it was just unbelievable. The fact that he even played, it wasn't like he had his best game.
Right.
He played okay, but he wasn't even supposed to be there. And when quarterback who almost died shows up to play, I mean, that tells you something,
Now, did he met his girlfriend in college, or that was like later on in life?
No, actually, high school. High school. We met her in high school. Yeah, and they, on again, off again throughout college. She got pregnant very early on. They had a baby when he was in college. And he's good at that, but they've been together for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And now he went from playing college and now being drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, like in the second round, 33rd overall in the 91 draft. And he was agreed to a 3-year, $1.4 million contract, and signing bonus like $350,000. And the coach was at that time was Jerry Glanville. He wasn't approved with the drafting of Favre. Like, why did that situation? What was that situation for?
Well, there were two sort of best left. Jeff and McGuire by Seattle. Then the Raiders got nervous, and the Saints wanted a quarterback. Their GM in first round. Glanville did not. And Glanville decided he didn't want Favre. He wanted down. And coming down, they have to make a pick. And Ken Harris, it was like, oh, you just take Glanville. So they're having this debate, Favre and Eagle. Finally, says, you know what, it's my decision. I'm taking Favre. From that point, Glanville had no real interest in Favre, and it kind of made his life miserable. And Favre was a baby at that point. He was a young kid. He drank too much.
Yep.
He ate too much. He just wasn't ready for sort of prime time. And that year, it was a growing year for him. It was a growing experience, but it was also a wasted season for Brett Favre.
And that was his only season he played with the Falcons. And I remembered his first pass in the regular season was an interception and return for a touchdown. And he only attempted like 4 passes in his career at Atlanta and intercepted twice and completed none of them. And that was it for Brett Favre in Atlanta. Then he went from Atlanta to now being Green Bay, in which, of course, he was the starting. Well, he wasn't a starting quarterback at first because there was a starting quarterback who was injured when they played against the Bengals in the '92 season.
Yeah, that was Don McCann.
Hold on a second. Jeff, can you hear me? I think we lost him. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Okay. I think
Did you lose me?
Yeah, we did lose. Yeah, I did lose you. So, okay, now it's better now. Now, as I was saying was, Brett Favre went from Atlanta to now being Green Bay. And that, of course, he started his dynasty with Green Bay. And like I said, he didn't start with the starting QB because there was another starting QB. What was starting QB before Favre? And that's what it was Mike Holcomb's first season with the Packers.
Yeah, the guy's name was Don Majkowski. You remember Don Majkowski, the Magic Man?
Yes, I do.
And he was a starter. And it was early in that season. Majkowski was playing terribly against Tampa. And they inserted Favre, and he didn't do so well. And then the next game, they were playing Cincinnati, and Majkowski got hurt. And Favre comes in, and he just throws this absolute bullet for the winning touchdown. They end up winning, comeback win, and everyone goes crazy. And then Favre starts winning, and they're good. And Majkowski's out, and Favre is starting. Majkowski comes back, Favre still starts. And that was it. He was the starting quarterback from that point on. He was just Don Majkowski at that point was a kind of a damaged older quarterback. He didn't have the arm strength anymore. And Favre was just his breath of fresh air. No one had ever seen anything like him in Green Bay.
And then when they faced against the Pittsburgh Steelers, because the game ended like in a 17-13 victory, and the passer rating was like 144.6. And during that season, Favre helped put together like a 6-game winning streak for the Packers, which was the longest winning streak for the club since 1965. And that season, they ended up like 9-7 and missed playoffs for like the last game.
Yeah, I mean, he was great, and he was. They didn't have that much talent. They had one good wide receiver, Sterling Sharp. Their running backs were mediocre. Their defense was okay. But they had a good coach, Mike Holmgren, in his first year. And they had a young, kind of hotshot quarterback.
Right. And I did remember, like, next year, because I knew next year they did make it to the playoffs. And then, of course, nobody should forget about the game. It was the NFC wild card between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. People should remember that game, like, from beginning to end.
Well, I don't think they do, but it was to me, it's the best throw of Favre's career. I mean, he hit Sterling Sharp with this winning touchdown. It was just this bullet. I mean, it's one of the best throws I've ever seen. An absolute bullet that split the safety and the cornerback. And the thing that was really cool about it, Sharp told me when I interviewed him, is Sharp had an injury that game, and he wasn't running quite as fast. And he said Favre knew that and took a tiny bit off the ball, just a tiny bit. And he just said it showed him, Sterling Sharp, it showed him how smart this guy was, that he was fully aware of his environment and what was going on. It was a great throw.
Right, and then the next year, and then the next season, they finished 9-7 and advanced to the playoffs in like the back-to-back years. And like for the first time, he was not eligible in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, that is true. I don't even know what to say. He was an up-and-down quarterback. You know, like I wrote this book, so I should be praising Brett Favre nonstop, but I can't. He was up and down, and he was inconsistent. I don't consider him one of the 10 best quarterbacks of all time. I consider him the most entertaining quarterback of all time. He was great. But if you look at the graph of his career, I mean, it's not like Dan Marino or even John Elway. I mean, there were a lot of bad years in there. There were a lot of dumb throws. There were a lot of really stupid, boneheaded plays. But that's kind of what makes him so fascinating. He wasn't a robot like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. I mean, he was all over the map. You never knew. You enter a game, you think you're going to, we're playing Tampa. We're going to beat Tampa. Well, then Brett Favre throws 4 interceptions. Then you think, oh, no, we're playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's really good. And Favre lights him up. That's kind of the beauty of him. You just didn't know what you were going to get, ever.
Exactly. And then Favre tied an NFL record by passing for at least 2 touchdowns in 12 consecutive games, and that was accomplished over the 94-95 season. And they advanced to the NFC. The Packers advanced to the NFC Championship game, upsetting the 49ers in the divisional game. So how was it like when Brett Favre first went to the Super Bowl? Because like last season, they did lose to my Cowboys in the 95 NFC Championship game.
Well, you know, they played New England in the Super Bowl. They were heavy favorites. It was interesting because at that point, Favre, he had come out of rehab not that long earlier. He went to the Menninger's Clinic in Kansas, and he came out of rehab. And he wasn't supposed to be drinking, at least that's what the public thought. But a couple of people saw him drinking in New Orleans that week. And it turns out the NFL lifted the ban but hadn't told anyone, so he wasn't really doing anything wrong. And he didn't play great in that game. He played well. He didn't play great. Desmond Howard was the MVP. But it was huge. I mean, you're talking about the original, you're talking about the franchise that won the first 2 Super Bowls. And it'd been, 3 decades since they won. And all of a sudden they're back. And this guy, that's charismatic, dynamic leader, And the interesting sort of couple is Brett Favre and Reggie White were really the two leaders of that team.
Yes, I remember that.
Reggie White was this very pious Christian, didn't curse, didn't go to clubs, didn't cheat on his wife. And, Favre was kind of the exact opposite. I mean, he was a Catholic, but he didn't behave very religiously. But they really got along well and kind of formed a bond.
I did remember in the Super Bowl 31, Favre called an audible, and he threw like a 54-yard touchdown pass to Andre Rison.
Oh, yeah. That was the opening touchdown of the game. And, Rison's a great story because Rison and Favre had been teammates in Atlanta.
Right.
And their paths sort of went apart. Rison flamed out in Cleveland and Jacksonville. Favre became the star. Rison was a free agent, and Holmgren just decided to sign him, and Ron Wolf decided to sign him for almost no money. And, Rison had called, he had actually criticized Favre in the papers before they were teammates, where he called him a redneck. And Favre's response was, yeah, he's right. I'm a redneck. That's cool. Rison got there, and he and Favre got along great. He was huge. He was still a real, solid veteran receiver, very important part of that team.
And then there was another situation that happened in 2001. Favre was like a target of a minor controversy, like when he played against the Giants, and he was sacked by Giants defenseman Michael Strahan, which, of course, he's with Fox. It was Strahan's lone sack of the game and gave him the NFL single sack record of 22.5, which topped Mark Gastineau's record of 22 sets in 1984.
That is correct. The controversy was Favre let him have the sack. And people thought that, that violated some spirit, but the record was gained by Gastineau without sort of anyone helping him. And it was just an example of Favre being a decent guy. Whether you think it was right or not, he was just trying to be a decent guy. He respected Strahan. It was the end of the season. The sack was meaningless, so he gave it to him. It was a controversy for about a day and a half. It didn't really matter.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Pearlman's on the Shawn Stewart Show for those of you who are listening. There was another game, especially on Monday Night Football. It was like 3 days before Christmas. It was Monday Night Football. His father died of a stroke, and that's when he was facing against the Raiders, who was in the Super Bowl 37. Favre had like 4 touchdowns in the first half and 399 total yards and a 41-7 victory over the Raiders on international television, especially the Raider Nation. He had like 73.3 completion rate on his passes. So how was it when Brett Favre, when his father died, and especially with that performance on Monday Night Football against the Raiders?
Well, to me, it's the vintage performance of his career. If you were going to say, what's the moment from Brett Favre's career, it has to be that. I mean, he and his dad were very, very close. His dad had been his high school coach. His dad took tremendous pride in Brett's success in his career. They talked regularly, et cetera, et cetera. So his dad died in Mississippi. Brett found it out. He was devastated. He decided not to play. Then he decided to play. Then he decided not to play. And finally he decided to play. And they held a team meeting in a hotel in Oakland in a ballroom. And Favre gave this speech where he basically said, I'm playing for the love of football. I'm playing for the love of my dad. I'm playing for the love I have for my teammates. And if you watch that game, some of the catches that Javon Walker made were preposterous. I mean, they were leaping, one-handed. Nobody's making this catch, and he made those catches. It was unbelievable. So they really played for these guys. Love Favre. It's a thing. These guys love Favre. And what's interesting about him, he's a white guy from Mississippi.
Right.
And his African-American teammates loved him, and it was unconditional love. They just thought he was a cool guy, an understanding guy, an open-minded guy. And guys played hard for him. He was a guy, he knew all the words to Rapper's Delight, but he also loved Kenny Chesney. Like he could quote movie lines. He farted all the time. He was funny and weird and quirky and just a real good teammate for many years.
Wow, that is. And then after that, a couple of months, his brother-in-law died like an all-terrain vehicle accident of Mississippi's property. And then like in August, and then like 2005, and when it was in Hurricane Katrina blew through Mississippi, it destroyed his family house there, and none of his family members were injured. So thank goodness by that. So what was Brett Favre's reaction when Hurricane Katrina came in?
Well, he was nervous because he couldn't reach him. He was in Green Bay, and his family was in Mississippi, and his home where he grew up was flooded to the point where his brother, his mom, his sisters, his cousins, nephews, they were all inside. And inside the house, and the water was rising and rising and rising and rising. I mean, neck level, chin level, and Favre wasn't there. He just wasn't there because he was in Mississippi. But he was freaking out because he couldn't reach him. And finally, his sister got in touch with him. I think 2 days later.
Wow. And then like around 2000, and then around 2007, because like that was his last season when he was with the Packers. He had like a minor arthroscope ankle surgery in Green Bay, so he had to remove his buildup of a bone spurs in his left ankle. Is that when Brett Favre's body began to wear out?
Well, I mean, he took a beating throughout his career. He took a beating throughout his career. Now, as he got older, I mean, you jump ahead to the season with the Jets. He left Green Bay, went to New York in 2008, and he started out super hot there. The Jets were the best team in football.
Yes, they were.
And all of a sudden, his arm just went out, and he could not throw. And they ended up missing the playoffs. The guy who plays Chad Pennington went to Miami and led the Dolphins to the AFC East championship. And I think that's when you really see Favre, the injuries start to sort of take a toll on him that season in particular.
And then, of course, we cannot forget that Brett Favre went to the Minnesota Vikings, and he took the Minnesota Vikings into the NFC Championship, and they almost came close when they beat the Saints, but apparently that didn't happen.
Well, that was a bounty game, and if you watch that game, I mean, Favre had relatives at the game who left at halftime because it was so difficult for them to watch. The Saints beat the snot out of Favre. They hit him late. I mean, if you look at it within the context of football, it was a pretty smart strategy. The other team has a 40-year-old quarterback. Let's beat the crap out of him. And that's what they did. They beat the crap out of him. It was sinister, and they took some shots at him that just were completely unfair and unethical. But it's kind of how life is in the NFL, unfortunately. They weren't the only team to get paid to take quarterbacks out of games. It was more common than people think.
That's kind of sound like a bounty gate right there.
Yeah, it was. It was a bounty gate.
Exactly, and that's why the Saints got caught. That's why the Saints got caught, and that's why they lost some draft picks.
Correct, and their coach had to sit out a year.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's what they did. But they made it to the Super Bowl, and they won the Super Bowl. So I suppose for them, if you were to ask them financially, was it worth it? They would say yes.
I know they would say that. And then after that season, Brett Favre had like a sprained shoulder, and he was like marked inactive for that game against the Giants, and that ended his consecutive regular season game streak at 297. So how was it when Favre said, you know what, it's time for me to hang it up? I've been doing this for like 20 years.
It was good for him because, he came back. He didn't really want to come back the second we were in Minnesota, but he was convinced, and the team had been good. And come on, Brett, come on back. We can make the Super Bowl. And he came back, and the team was terrible. They changed coaches midway through the year. He was not good. He got knocked out with a concussion against the Bears. And it was probably the best thing that happened to him because, the team was so bad. The season was so bad. I think he realized it was time to go, that it wasn't going to get any better. So he definitely left at the best time, at the right time.
Right, and then there were like couple. I think NFL Network were trying to reach out to him because he was at Super Bowl 47, and then Brett Favre says, "No, I'm not going to do it. Let me just do what I want to do." So there you have it.
Yeah, that is correct. I think he's happy not being a football player.
Right, and then also not to mention that Brett Favre jersey was retired because I did see it on Sunday when they were facing against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean I think he and when you talk players, he's the greatest Packer of all time. It's better than Brett Bart Starr, Paul Hornung, Jim Taylor, name them. I had Ray Nitschke. He's the greatest Packer of all time. So he didn't win as much as some other guys. I mean, the Packers won back-to-back Super Bowls, but he brought Green Bay football back from a very dead place. They'd been dead for a long time, and he sort of carried it back to a place on the top of the NFL.
And I have to say to myself, I am a big fan of Brett Favre because every time I watched him play football, it was like whether you're going to see the good Brett Favre or the bad Brett Favre. That's what made him so special as a quarterback.
Yeah, well, we kind of forget sometimes that this is entertainment. That's all it is. It's entertainment. It's not real. It's not war. It's not the stock market. It's entertainment. It's us being entertained for 4 quarters on a Sunday or a Monday night. And who is more entertaining than him? I mean, I wrote about Walter Payton. You could argue Walter Payton, but Favre had the ball every play. I just think he was the most dynamic, exciting, relatable quarterback we've maybe ever had, and that's what made him a pretty good book subject. Yeah, but it's available now on Amazon and everything. It's already out there.
No, where can my people find you on social media?
At Jeff Pearlman on Twitter, and also jeffpearlman.com. It's my website.
Okay. And by the way, you can purchase his previous book online at his website, by the way, just in case if you didn't know
Correct.
that. So, like I said, I'm looking forward for that book. So, I'm ready for the free copy of it. So, thank you very much. And I will look to have you on the future show when you get your new book.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You have a great night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too, bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeff Pearlman. So once again, that book is called Gunslinger. It will be released next week, next Tuesday, which will be my birthday. So ready for me. So I can't wait for that book to be released. I'm so happy.